The red capes are coming. The red capes are coming. You and your hearings. Galloping through the streets to warn us. One if by land, two if by air. Do you know the oldest lie in America, Senator? Can I call you June?
You can call me whatever you like. Take a bucket of piss and call it Granny's peach tea. Take a weapon of assassination and call it deterrence. You won't fool a fly or me. I'm not gonna drink it.
Hey, you don't think Dad would mind, do you? If I changed just one thing in this room? Because that should be upside down. Now, we know better now, don't we? The devils don't come from hell beneath us, no. No, they come from the sky.
Perhaps the most vital directive in Weishaupt's plan was to obtain absolute control of the press, at that time the only mass communications media, to distribute information to the public, so that all news and information could be slanted, so that the masses could be convinced that a one-world government is the only solution to our many and varied problems. Now do you know who owns and controls our mass communications media? I'll tell you, practically all the movie lots in Hollywood is owned by the Lehmans, Kuhn-Loeb and Company, Goldman Sachs, and other internationalist bankers. All the national radio and TV channels in the nation are owned and controlled by those same internationalist bankers. The same is true of every chain of metropolitan newspapers and magazines, also of the press wire services, such as Associated Press, United Press International, etc. The supposed heads of all those media are merely the fronts for the internationalist bankers, who in turn compose the hierarchy of the CFR, today's Illuminati in America. Now can you understand why the Pentagon's press agent Sylvester so brazenly proclaimed that the government has the right to lie to the people? What he really meant was that our CFR-controlled government had the power to lie to and be believed by the brainwashed American people. And let's again go back to the first days of the Illuminati. Because Britain and France were the two greatest world powers in the late years of the 18th century, Weishaupt ordered the Illuminati to foment the colonial wars, including our Revolutionary War, to weaken the British Empire and organize the French Revolution to destroy the French Empire. He scheduled the French Revolution to start in 1789. However, in 1784, a true act of God placed the Bavarian government in possession of evidence which proved the existence of the Illuminati, and that evidence could have saved France if they, the French government, hadn't refused to believe it. Here is how that act of God happened. It was in 1874 that Weishaupt issued his orders for the French Revolution. A German writer named Zwack put it into book form. It contained the entire Illuminati story and Weishaupt's plans. A copy of this book was sent to the Illuminists in France, headed by Robespierre, whom Weishaupt had delegated to foment the French Revolution. The courier was struck and killed by lightning as he rode through Raleston on his way from Frankfurt to Paris. The police found the subversive documents on his body and turned them over to the proper authorities. After careful study of the plot, the Bavarian government ordered the police to raid Weishaupt's newly organized lodges of the Grand Orient and the homes of his most influential associates. All additional evidence thus discovered convinced the authorities the documents were genuine copies of the conspiracy by which the Illuminati planned to use wars and revolutions to bring about the establishment of a one-world government, the powers of which they, headed by the Rothschilds, intended to usurp as soon as it was established. Exactly in line with the United Nations plot of today. In 1785, the Bavarian government outlawed the Illuminati and closed the lodges of the Grand Orient. In 1786, they published all the details of the conspiracy. The English title of that publication is The Original Writings of the Order and Sect of the Illuminati. Copies of the entire conspiracy were sent to all the heads of church and state in Europe. But the power of the Illuminati, which was actually the power of the Rothschilds, was so great that this warning was ignored. Nevertheless, Illuminati became a dirty word, and it went underground. At the same time, Weishaupt ordered Illuminists to infiltrate into the lodges of Blue Masonry and form their own secret societies within all secret societies. Only Masons who proved themselves internationalists and those whose conduct proved they had defected from God were initiated into the Illuminati. Thenceforth, the conspirators donned the cloak of philanthropy and humanitarianism to conceal their revolutionary and subversive activities. In order to infiltrate into Masonic lodges in Britain, Weishaupt invited John Robison over to Europe. Robison was a high-degree Mason in the Scottish Rite. He was a professor of natural philosophy at Edinburgh University and secretary of the Royal Society of Edinburgh. Robison did not fall for the lie that the objective of the Illuminati was to create a benevolent dictatorship, but he kept his reactions to himself so well that he was entrusted with a copy of Weishaupt's revised conspiracy for study and safekeeping. Anyway, because the heads of state and church in France were deluded into ignoring the warnings given them, the revolution broke out in 1789 as scheduled by Weishaupt. In order to alert other governments to their danger, in 1798 Robison published a book entitled Proof of a Conspiracy to Destroy All Governments and Religions. But his warnings were ignored, exactly as our American people have been ignoring all warnings about the United Nations and the Council on Foreign Relations, the CFR. Now here is something that will stun and very likely outrage many who hear this, but there is documentary proof that our own Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton became students of Weishaupt's. Jefferson was one of Weishaupt's strongest defenders when he was outlawed by his government. And it was Jefferson who infiltrated the Illuminati into the then newly organized lodges of the Scottish Rite in New England. Here is the proof. In 1789, John Robison warned all Masonic leaders in America that the Illuminati had infiltrated into their lodges. And on July 19, 1789, David Papin, president of Harvard University, issued the same warning to the graduating class and lectured them on the influence Illuminism was acquiring on American politics and religion. And to top it off, John Quincy Adams, who had organized the New England Masonic lodges, issued his warnings. He wrote 3 letters to Colonel William L. Stone, a top Mason, in which he exposed how Jefferson was using Masonic lodges for subversive, Illuministic purposes. Those 3 letters are at this very time in Rittenberg Square Library in Philadelphia. In short, Jefferson, founder of the Democratic Party, was a member of the Illuminati, which at least partly accounts for the condition of the party at this time. And through infiltrations of the Republican Party, we have exactly nothing of loyal Americanism today. That disastrous rebuff at the Congress at Vienna, created by the Tsar of Russia, did not by any means destroy the Illuminati conspiracy. It merely forced them to adopt a new strategy. Realizing that the one world idea was, for the moment, killed, the Rothschilds decided that to keep the plot alive, they'd have to do it by heightening their control of the money systems of the European nations. Earlier, by a ruse, the outcome of the Battle of Waterloo had been falsified. Rothschild had spread a story that Napoleon had won that battle. That had precipitated a terrific panic on the stock market in England. All stocks had plummeted down to practically zero, and Nathan Rothschild bought all the stocks for virtually a penny on its dollar values. That gave him complete control of the economy of Britain and virtually of all Europe. So immediately after that Congress in Vienna had boomeranged, Rothschild forced Britain to set up a new Bank of England, which he absolutely controlled, exactly as later, through Jacob Schiff, he engineered our own Federal Reserve Act, which gave the House of Rothschild a secret control of the economy in the United States. But now for a moment, let's dwell on the activities of the Illuminati in the United States. In 1826, one Captain William Morgan decided it was his duty to inform all Masons and the general public what the full truth was regarding the Illuminati, their secret plans and intended objectives. Also reveal the identities of the masterminds of the conspiracy. The Illuminati promptly tried Morgan in absentia and convicted him of treason. They ordered one Richard Howard, an English Illuminist, to carry out their sentence of execution as a traitor. Morgan was warned and he tried to escape to Canada, but Howard caught up with him near the border, near the Niagara Gorge to be exact, where he murdered him. This was verified in a sworn statement made in New York by one Avery Allen to the effect that he heard Howard render his report of the execution to a meeting of Knights Templars in St. John's Hall, New York. He also told how arrangements had been made to ship Howard back to England. That Allen affidavit is on record in New York City archives. Very few Masons and very few of the general public know that general disapproval over that incident of murder caused approximately half of all the Masons in the northern jurisdiction of the United States to secede. Copies of the minutes of the meeting held to discuss that matter are still in existence in safe hands, and that all that secrecy emphasizes the power of the masterminds of the Illuminati to prevent such terrible events of history from being taught in our schools. In the early 1850s, the Illuminati held a secret meeting in New York, which was addressed by a British Illuminist named Wright. Those in attendance were told that the Illuminati was organizing to unite the nihilist and atheist groups with all other subversive groups into an international to be known as communists. That was when the word communist first came into being, and it was intended to be the supreme weapon and scare word to terrify the whole world and drive the terrorized peoples into the Illuminati one world scheme. This scheme, communism, was to be used to enable the Illuminati to foment future wars and revolutions. Clinton Roosevelt, a direct ancestor of Franklin Roosevelt, Horace Greeley and Charles Dana, foremost newspaper publishers of that time, were appointed to head a committee to raise funds for the new venture. Of course, most of the funds were provided by the Rothschilds. And this fund was used to finance Karl Marx and Engels when they wrote Das Kapital and the Communist Manifesto in Soho, England. And this clearly reveals that communism is not a so-called ideology, but a secret weapon, a bogeyman word to serve the purpose of the Illuminati. Weishaupt died in 1830, but prior to his death he prepared a revised version of the age-old conspiracy, the Illuminati, which under various aliases was to organize, finance, direct, and control all international organizations and groups by working their agents into executive positions at the top. In the United States, we have Woodrow Wilson, Franklin Roosevelt, Jack Kennedy, Johnson, Rusk, McNamara, Fulbright, etc. as prime examples. In addition, while Karl Marx was writing the Communist Manifesto under the direction of one group of Illuminists, Professor Karl Ritter of Frankfurt University was writing the antithesis under direction of another group. The idea was that those who direct the overall conspiracy could use the differences in those two so-called ideologies to enable them to divide larger and larger members of the human race into opposing camps so that they could be armed and then brainwashed into fighting and destroying each other, and particularly to destroy all political and religious institutions. The work Ritter started was continued after his death and completed by the German so-called philosopher Friedrich Wilhelm Nietzsche, who founded Nietzscheism. This Nietzscheism was later developed into fascism and then into Nazism and was used to foment World Wars I and II. In 1834, the Italian revolutionary leader Giuseppe Mazzini was selected by the Illuminati to direct their revolutionary program throughout the world. He served in that capacity until he died in 1872. But some years before he died, Mazzini had enticed an American general named Albert Pike into the Illuminati. Pike was fascinated by the idea of a one-world government, and ultimately he became the head of this Luciferian conspiracy. Between 1859 and 1871, he, Pike, worked out a military blueprint for 3 world wars and various revolutions throughout the world, which he considered would forward the conspiracy to its final stage in the 20th century. Again, I remind that these conspirators were never concerned with immediate success. They always operated on a long-range view. Pike did most of his work in his home in Little Rock, Arkansas. But a few years later, when the Illuminati's lodges of the Grand Orient became suspect and repudiated because of Mazzini's revolutionary activities in Europe, Pike organized what he called the New and Reformed Palladian Rite. He set up 3 Supreme Councils, one in Charleston, South Carolina, one in Rome, Italy, and the 3rd in Berlin, Germany. He had Mazzini establish 23 subordinate councils in strategic locations throughout the world. These have been the secret headquarters of the world revolutionary movement ever since. Long before Marconi invented radio, the scientists in the Illuminati had found the means for Pike and the heads of his councils to communicate secretly. It was the discovery of that secret that enabled intelligence officers to understand how apparently unrelated incidents, one such as the assassination of an Austrian prince at Sarajevo, took place simultaneously throughout the world, which developed into a war or a revolution.
Yo, back in this bit for another podcast. Go Deep episode 254. Didn't even have to fucking stall to go find that. Let's hope I'm right. Episode 254, I think we alright. Oh shit. What a night. Last night. We alright. Oh man, so I hope y'all like that intro. Y'all have seen that intro before. Y'all have seen that intro twice. You have seen that intro 3 times, actually. Go deep, baby. Go deep. So, if y'all have been paying attention to that intro says some fucking deep ass shit. That's Myron Fagan. I think that radio interview, I think that was 1973. And I got another well, let's get in some music real quick. Let's get in some music and then I'll come back and tell you what's up with the rest of the podcast. You bitch.
If you will turn on your radio in a Negro revival meeting on a Sunday night, you will hear Russo when the preacher starts talking sensibly, but the congregation gets more and more enthusiastic. Amen. Yes, Lord. And it works out the preacher so that by the time he is through, have turned into not only poetry, but beyond poetry into music.
Say Telvin.
Hey, you know what up? It's out. Say what's poppin'? No trust, motherfucking niggas, never trust a bitch, nigga, I don't fuck with these niggas cause they shady. These bitches, they just wanna have my baby. Born in the 80s, crack baby. Damn. Mama, she was in the street, so guess who raised me? You motherfucking right, couldn't get it from my mama, so I got it off the block. Been working my whole life, but I ain't never punched a clock. 9 years old, I seen a nigga get shot. Damn. Niggas quick to run they mouth when they get jammed. Pussy ass nigga, tell it on his own fam. The same nigga that you break your neck for, be the same nigga that cross you out and wet you up. Supposed to be chasing money, but you chasing bitches. Real bosses don't talk, we just sit back and listen. Stack that paper up and then make boss moves. She like to argue, so I sent that bitch to law school. Keep it real with your dog no matter what. Preach. Same bitch that claim she love you, she'll set you up. Preach. Out here in these streets, it ain't no such thing as love. Preach. The only thing I trust is this pistol and these slugs. Preach. Real nigga shit, only when I do speak. If that nigga don't work, he'll fucking leech. Preach. I ain't got shit for a nigga, ain't nothing in this motherfucking world free. Preach. Zay got the motherfucking bass thumping. Dolph got the motherfucking trap jumping. Doors to the trap open, now I sell you something. Hell no, don't ask, I ain't frontin' nothing. I fucked your bitch and told her I'll see you around. Dog just skipped town with 200,000. Dog just poured an 8 in a 2-liter pop. They say Dolph addicted to these streets just like his pops. Addicted to hustling, I can't stop. Won't stop. Can't stop. Never hear me complain about what I ain't got. Cause if I want it, I'ma go get it. Yeah. Free my nigga, yo, did it. Got paper route tatted on your whole titty. Same nigga you getting high with, he really your enemy. Every day niggas cross they partners out for Benjamin. With your dog no matter what. Preach. Same bitch that claim she love you, she'll set you up. Preach. Out here in these streets, it ain't no such thing as love. Preach. The only thing I trust is this pistol and these slugs. Preach. Real nigga shit, only when I do speak. If that nigga don't work, he'll fucking leech. Preach. I ain't got shit for a nigga, ain't nothing in this motherfucking world free. Preach.
all right. We are back in this bitch. Definitely don't know what song I played just now because I don't know. I don't know where to catch my mind. I don't even know what. Normally I don't know until I say it, and then I'll be like, oh yeah, I want to listen to that. But hey, that song hasn't popped in my head yet, so I hope y'all like that song that I just played, my future listeners. Now we're gonna get into this podcast because, like I said, the beginning of that podcast is Myron Fagan, 1973, and then you have I put another podcast in here. I think it was 2010, maybe 2010 or 2011. It was Aaron Russo, Alex Jones podcast. Now this was Alex Jones early. You know, I don't fuck with Alex Jones like that because he be wilding out, and I think a lot of his, wilding out hides his little subversive words and shit like that, But that doesn't, that doesn't count out the content that he put out. He started out, he had some dope ass content, you quickly learn Alex Jones was just trying to talk over everybody he interviewed. So, like, when he started getting big, he does this more than he did when he was young, because back then he didn't really have the clout, so a lot of guests wouldn't let him talk, or he just didn't do that type of fucking interview back then. But you can tell even on this Aaron Russo interview, there was some shit that was coming out of, how he likes to talk over. See, what I'm even describing Alex Jones' interview techniques, because so I think Alex Jones is like a part of the problem. I think he's like one of them people too, because here's how he do. He would get a person on his show that has a lot of info or maybe cool, and each time the guy's talking, he'll just interject shit and talk over him and interject more bullshit, then talk over you and talk over you and talk over you. He makes every interview about himself, and he interjects it with some bullshit, which are just rabbit holes that while you're in an interview, you might have a train of thought thinking one way, and then he says some dumb shit and like, oh yeah, what about this and what about this, and then he'll talk over you. He never lets you get a complete interview out. Notice that about Alex Jones. He never lets that person being interviewed get a full statement out. And that's you might think, oh yeah, I'm going on Alex Jones show, get a lot of views, but no, he's really he's throwing tomatoes at you the whole time. You just think he's on your side, but he's really throwing tomatoes at you. And you got to get every show you go on, whether it's Vlad TV, you got to learn their interview techniques. Vlad is trying to trick you into incriminating yourself so he can solve a case. And, that's all he does. And Vlad is different. Vlad is, and Adam 22, both of them. Adam 22 recently coming under fire, and we wondering, like, how do people like Adam 22 blow up in our hood where the top two urban channels are white boys? How is that possible? We always wonder that. But you gotta understand, like Adam 22, what do he pump? 24/7 all day, either gangsters or hoes, tricks, prostitutes, either gangsters in Cali or tricks and prostitutes. The world, especially California, especially America, is filled with much more people than gangster rappers and prostitutes. But what that does to fuck with your brain, it makes everyone think that's watching it, damn, I'm gonna either have to be a gangster, which is gonna kill my people, or I'm gonna have to be a prostitute, which is really never going to have raise a good family life because they're going to be out on that track. But that's what they do. So they pump this shit. All of these shit be poisons, but you got to understand this. And this ties into this podcast. Now, you probably be like, who pumps this shit? How do these fuckers get... These dudes are backed by the same corporate industry as rappers that try to get into the game. Notice this. When these rappers be dying mysteriously, there's always an interview maybe a week before. Always. Because the industry know they're about to kill this rapper. So they set up the rapper with a album, tour, and a flock of interviews. So because they know they're going to get this content from this rapper. Notice that shit. You saw that shit with DMX. He was on the Nori shit. He just got a new album. He thought he was coming back in life. Nah, they were about to out you. They were about to turn your lights off. They just was gonna take your final bits of content. Now, we say they, and we gotta understand, they is not the government. I mean, it is the government in a certain way, but there's people that own the government too. So we gotta look at this shit. This is, as you see with that intro, these are corporate entities. So all rappers go get a deal with the corporate industry. They're not getting deals with anybody else. They're getting deals with corporations. The corporations has their media also. As you saw, the CFR owns every media station in America. Even guys, they are in social media also. They're on YouTube also. When you wonder, how does Adam 22 and all these guys get catapulted to the top? Bruh. The day you start thinking is gonna be the day we survive this shit. We've seen. All right, Zack Snyder has been telling us this shit. Like, he can't make it no clearer. Christopher Nolan can't make it no clearer. They can't use any bigger characters than Superman and Batman and try to tell you what the fuck is going on. But you still won't see. You're still like, Doomsday. Doomsday killed Superman. You're still in that shit. Oh man, are they gonna release the Snyderverse? I can't. Sometimes I try to still stay in this like movement kind of thing and watch people's podcasts, but it upsets me to see grown ass men still. Man, I heard from Warner Brothers. I heard from this agency or this blue check or this news people. I heard that Ben Affleck is gonna do this and they're gonna put him in this and that, blah 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 blah. Bruh, how many years are you gonna devote of your life working for the corporation? Like, if you don't see that Warner Brothers has y'all doing this shit by now, you need to go to the nearest bridge and jump the fuck off that shit. The nearest high bridge. Don't survive this shit. We need to pure this earth. People that think like y'all. Cause this don't make no fucking sense, y'all. We watched the Dark Knight trilogy. We did not get what they were telling us. We watched Zack Snyder's movies. You did not get what he's telling you yet. If you don't understand GODEEP, you damn sure don't understand a Zack Snyder movie. You damn sure don't. Now, The bad guy in Batman vs Superman was a corporation. You know? The bad guy in the Dark Knight trilogy sank Wayne Enterprises, another corporation. It was a corporate fight. Everything else was spewing off from a corporate fight. Remember Bane put his hand on the dude's neck and was like, "Do you feel in charge?" So if y'all have to look at it through a corporate lens, because there's people higher than church and state. You think you living in a level of life where church and state, you learn your morals and ethics in the church, and the state implements its laws through the land's morals and ethics. You think that's what you're still going through, but you're not. If you don't factor in the corporate interest of everyone's country, you're so far away from what's going on that you might as well, like I said, jump off a fucking bridge. Now, Ozymandias, corporation. He's richer than the oil industry, is what he's saying. He's gonna use his new energy, his new found energy that they made in Rockefeller Research Institute. Rockefeller, guys. How much more do Zack Snyder gotta say? How much more do Christopher Nolan gotta say? You know? So then, in real life, we see, Ghislaine Maxwell is sex trafficking and they ride around with Bill Gates all the time. Bruh, do you really think Bill Gates needs hoes? Do you really think that's what's going on? Do you really think Bill Gates needs little girls to have sex with? Bill Gates is the owner of corporations. Bill Gates is LexCorp. All these stupid rich guys right now that became Bezos over COVID, over the past 2 or 3 years has become this fucking richer than government people. They're corporations. Amazon, corporations. They're entities now. They're gods now. When the corporations tell us, Black Lives Matters, when the corporations say that shit gets put down on a fucking street. That shit gets instant millions overnight. That shit gets allowed to blow down all these cities, burn down all these places. And it's allowed to because the gods said it, the corporations. That's when you know this movement had corporate influence. When all of our big people started saying hashtag Black Lives Matters, when Ray Fisher started trying to get us to go with the Democratic Party doing some dumb shit, that's when you know the corporate interest is in the movement. When you can't say certain things on Twitter, you're not organic. That's the corporations telling you what you can say, because they do to everyone. You see, the corporations told Dave Chappelle what he can and what he cannot say, and everything you can't say is American shit, right? So Ozymandias is blowing up America. Oh yeah, LexCorp introduced the abomination on America, Doom's fucking Day. Guys, y'all are not paying attention. Y'all are not. Y'all are still talking about, I heard from Warner Brothers that they're gonna release the fucking Snyderverse or some bullshit like that, while your country is telling you, we about to mandatory vaccinate your bitch ass and you about to be on lockdown like a motherfucker, and you saw this shit in all of these movies like 10 years ago, but you just didn't understand what you was looking at. LexCorp, right? When he had all them fucking girls downstairs and, Batman, saved the girls from sex trafficking. You think LexCorp needed money he needed to sell hookers? You think he needed money that bad? He needed to be a pimp also? You think so? When Batman caught the guy in the house and he branded him, Russian private military went and put a hit out on him in prison. He died. Russian private military that was working for an American corporation, killing people on America, kidnapping Lois Lane, threw the girl in the fucking train, in front of the train, all headed by an American corporation. You hear what he says when he says, yo, you should see what my R&D department is doing. That's where those girls were going to. They were going to meet Bill Gates. Bill Gates don't need no hoes. But R&D is his number one fucking claim to fame. That how much more clearer can Zack Snyder say it? He can't say it, guys. He's in the corporation. He can only lead you to saying it, leading you to waking up. If you don't do it, if you don't wake up, that is the reason why the world goes on lockdown by the corporations, because you haven't become aware to what's going on yet. Right? So, if you haven't become aware, you don't know how to beat it. You don't know how to go around it. So you do what they say. And the world becomes what the world is today. Right? We all knew Donald Trump was our best option going to 2024. We all knew that. But, well, the Watchmen knew that. The real Watchmen. I even hear there's some shit called the Democratic Watchmen right now, which is not no fucking Watchmen. If I go back in that room, I'm kicking out everybody in the fucking Democratic Watchmen. You're getting blocked. You're not going to be a fucking Watchman no more. I don't give a fuck about that bullshit. Because that's totally against what the Watchmen are about. Some fucking dumb shit. But we all knew what the play was. We all knew to go right. Everyone, dumbasses in this movement, wanted to use us. Use our numbers to go left. You know, we couldn't say, you know, we couldn't get behind Trump, because getting behind Trump was getting behind America, and the corporations didn't want that. So all the corporate influence in our movement led us away from that shit. All of these people that y'all thought were cool guys and, oh, they're Watchmen, they're TPZ, or they're, you know, whatever the fuck, exiles or whatever. All the cool guys were corporate led in this movement, if y'all didn't know by now. Except the Watchmen. They were trying to be in the Watchmen too, but I would always shut them the fuck down and shut them up. And they go make their own Watchmen room called Democratic Watchmen. Somebody told me that the other day. I couldn't believe that bullshit. I was like, what? I just laughed because whatever. When the cat's away, the mice will play. But we're gonna get into this interview right now. Aaron Russo, because like was in the interview on the intro, 1973 is gonna be 40 years later. He's gonna tell another fucking interview, but even doper. The interview on the intro and the interview on the outro is saying the same exact shit that Zack Snyder and Christopher Nolan was trying to tell us. They're saying the same exact thing. That's why I can overlap those interviews with the videos of their movies, because they're telling us the same shit. The problem with us, we don't understand what they're telling us. And Zack Snyder and Christopher Nolan, they work for the corporation, so they can't come out and just say it. So they have to hope that their viewership, their fans, are smart enough, you know? When they say, wake the fuck up, he's hoping that you wake the fuck up. If you don't, you're just, I don't know. I don't think millionaires be having real sympathy for people who don't wake up, because the people that's woke, I mean, I don't even say woke because that's some bullshit. I mean, people that understands what's going on, we need to grow bigger and, you know, influence the whole world, you know? Like what we did with this release the Snyder Cut shit. You know, if they would, you know, they prevented us, or they didn't want us to talk to Trump. You know, they tried to blackball everybody that had, you know, conservative viewpoints. They tried to stop us from helping America because they want the corporations to take over the world. So the corporations are in our movement. The corporations probably started this movement. We were attracted to it just because of Zack Snyder. But we were too strong for them. We were stronger than they expected. They expected us to be a lot of like teenagers who didn't really know shit and they can just use us and lead us. But no, we wasn't that. We're real watchmen. We make GODEEP and we know what the fuck going on and we still exist. Don't think the Watchmen have disappeared. The real Watchmen still exist. They still exist. They're still here. And we're watching. And we know, we kind of learning. The Watchmen are hard. The Watchmen we're fucking legendary, all right? We know what's going on in this country. We see what's going on in this country. We discuss what's going on in this country. And we're going to fix what's going on in this country because we're that legendary. Just like the real Watchmen got this movie out for y'all boys. The real Watchmen, we put in the fucking work in this movement. We're going to do the same shit for our country because we know what this shit means right now. And this podcast, I'm GODEEP. I'm just telling you, I'm a voice of them boys. Y'all are not ready. Half of y'all are sold out. Half of y'all are dumb. And sprinkled in with a few fucking corporate influencers that's whispering in your ear and leading you off a fucking show. But don't worry, guys. We're here to fuck those guys up. Let me get into the interview. GODEEP, episode 254. Watch this shit. They're all saying the same thing and it's all coming true. So if you don't know the game, if you don't know this game going on, it's going to be really hard for you coming up in the next fucking 2 years. It's going to be really hard. So you need to probably tap in real quick and get on your learning shit and think it. First, you need to become aware. And the first awareness is self-awareness. So you need to say to yourself, self, am I a fuck up? That's it. Your brain will fix that. Your brain itself. As soon as you become self-aware, your brain is going to fix every situation in your life. But you have to look at home first. You have to say, self, am I a fuck up? Is my kitchen dirty? Is my girlfriend mad at me? Is my house, whatever. Am I a fuck up? Your brain is going to tell you yes. But your brain is going to tell you how to fix it. As soon as you start fixing it, you're going to learn all the other fucked up situations on the outside of the world. And your brain is going to tell you how to fix it. But while you're going through this little process in life, and it took me a bunch of years. Because I was a fuck up too. It took me a bunch of years. But when you get through it, you see the world as, I wouldn't say you see the matrix, but you see the matrix. You don't see no little green ones and zeros around. But you see the simulation. You see the fucking game. And when you see the game, you know how to play it. You're not getting fucking, distracted by the other team's players. And you're not being ran off a cliff by your secret haters. You're killing your secret haters and you're kicking everybody out of the way that's in the way of the real fucking message. That's what level you are. That's why we shouldn't have opened the Watchmen room like that. I don't think so. It was my fault for doing it, but I guess it was good because it allowed me to let everybody kind of know what the fuck was going on. But I think there's levels to this shit, bro. If you ain't on the real Watchmen level, and the real Watchmen know what I'm talking about, it's like 13 or 14 of us, and I don't even have to really say shit no more in that chat room. I can go out of that bitch for days, go back in that shit. That shit running smoothly as a bitch. All the news articles, all the fucking, all the latest agendas is posted on that shit before sometimes major news. Yo, I'm proud of the real Watchmen. The bitch ass Watchmen. When Daddy come back home, I'm gonna just block y'all. I'm gonna just kick y'all out. I'm gonna make it known that y'all are not in the Watchmen no more. Because if y'all think y'all gonna use our name to lead other people on some bullshit, it's not gonna happen, bro. If you think you're gonna fucking Alex Jones me, it's not gonna happen, bro. Go deep, you bitch.
You rolling? I'm honored to be interviewed by Alex Jones, a truth seeker, fighting for justice in America.
Now he's charming me. It's getting me all smiley.
Aaron, when did you start to think something was wrong in the world, or start to find out about the whole banking cartel and the Federal Reserve System, the New World Order?
Well, that was a progression of events. I've always been a very independent person. Always believed in individuality, and that we were put on this earth to be unique individuals to fulfill our God-given potential, and that the only way to fulfill your potential is to be free, to find out who you are, and to make your errors, to make mistakes. And as I grew up, I began to realize more and more the government was inhibiting me in things that I wanted to do. And what happened, I was very successful in the ladies' lingerie business. I worked for my dad. He had a small undergarment business. And I created the first ladies' bikini panties back in 1963, actually. And then I opened up a nightclub in Chicago called the Electric Theater that opened up the day Martin Luther King was assassinated.
Wow.
Right? And so the city of Chicago was in flames the day my club opened. Wow. And nobody came out to the club. And well, what happened was that that was the year of the Democratic Convention in Chicago in '68. And so my club became a hangout for the hippies, and because they wanted to go to Chicago and protest what was going on. And I was having a concert at my club one night to raise money, and the police raided the nightclub, my club, for no reason at all. And I was standing outside in my office overlooking the street, and I saw all these paddy wagons pulling up in front of my club. And I was a 24-year-old kid. I had no experience at all, really. I said, what are these paddy wagons doing here? And then I saw all these cops getting out of the paddy wagons coming into my club. I said, oh my God, they're raiding me. And so I ran down to the stage, and I got on the stage, and I stopped the band from playing. And I said to the people in the audience, we're being raided, so sit down on the floor, cooperate, and pull out your identification and cooperate with the police. And as I said that, two of the cops from behind threw me onto the floor and grabbed me and started dragging me out of the club. I'm going, victory, victory. I'm playing it for all it was worth at the time. I was a kid. And then I saw the fire department there. And the fire department was dumping garbage cans, the garbage all over the floor. And I thought to myself, well, why are they doing that? Very quickly as they were dragging me out. And I didn't quite understand it. So they threw me into the paddy wagon. As I got into the paddy wagon, one of the cops grabbed my testicles from behind and squeezed. And I went into the paddy wagon in gigantic pain. And the next person that came into the paddy wagon, the cop, as he was stepping in, the cops took the billy club, smashed him on the head with it, and just split his skull, for no reason. I mean, there was nothing wrong.
So that was kind of your awakening.
That was my awakening. Like, what is going on? I thought this was America. So I initially blamed it on Chicago and made a daily thing. It was Chicago. And anyway, it was the headlines of the newspapers the next day. You know, there was my picture in the newspapers, the headlines, electric theater short-circuited, it was raided. And in the article, they went ahead and they said that the reason they raided the club was because the fire department came there and saw it was messy, full of garbage, and the hippies started attacking them, which was totally not true.
Those dirty hippies?
It was totally false. You know, it was a complete fabrication.
So they ran a false flag on you. They framed you.
Yeah, of course. You know, and I was in shock. I said, people lie like that? People actually do these things? I couldn't believe it. You know, it was like, it was an awakening to me. And I went on television, I told people on television that they lied. Nobody cared. Nobody cared what the truth was. You know, it was shocking to me. And then a week or 2 weeks later, I forget exactly what it was, two cops come to see me, a lieutenant and a sergeant, a captain and a sergeant. And they said, Mr. Russo, we're sorry if you got hurt that night at the club in the raid, but we're here to tell you that if you want to keep the club open, it's going to take $2,000 a month, and we're going to come see you once a month, and whenever we have to raid you, we're going to call you, you know, and we'll let you know we're going to come in tonight and raid you.
This was mafia.
Well, the police mafia,
yeah.
You know. And actually, it was actually more interesting than that. They said, listen, there's the A plan, there's the B plan, and there's the super deluxe plan. And this one will cost you, each one will cost you that much money a month. Which one do you want?
What was the super deluxe?
That's the one I took. That was a $2,000 a month plan. And I took that plan, and I paid them $2,000 a month, and they left me alone. And whenever they were going to raid the club, they would come there, we're going to have a phony raid tonight, you know, just to look good for the people in the neighborhood, you know.
So that was your first big education?
That was my education into corruption in government, you know, but I really thought that was basically Chicago. I didn't realize it was the whole country was like that. And so that was my wake-up call, that people lie and cheat and steal. And I thought everybody was always honest and nice and decent, and I had no idea about any of these things. Finally, one day they came to me, and they said, look, we can't take your money anymore. I said, why, what's up? What's going on? I said, we have to close your club. There's elections coming, and the aldermen in the neighborhood don't want you open anymore. So we can't take your money. So I had to go to court and fight them, and they were trying to close the club. And then one night there was a fire, and the club never reopened again. The club just closed, and that was the end of the club. And they burned me down. And that was the end of my experience. And then I moved back to New York, where I met Bette Midler, and I ran into her at a little nightclub she was playing called The Improv, and I thought she was fabulous. And through a series of events, I began managing her. And as soon as I started managing her, her career took off like a rocket. You know, just fortuitous, I guess. And we became very, very successful. And through managing Bette, I started producing shows on Broadway where I won the Tony, and I produced a television show where I won the Emmy with Dustin Hoffman and Bette, you know, and then I produced The Rose for her, where she got Academy Award nominations. Wow. And then that led me to producing Trading Places, which everybody knows. You know,
I think it's the best Eddie Murphy movie.
Well, it's a good one. I don't know if it's the best, but it's a really good one. And I'm very proud I made that movie. And so in my mind, I feel as if I've made a classic comedy in Trading Places, a classic musical in The Rose, and a classic documentary in Freedom to Fascism. You know, so I'm very proud of my work that I've done as a filmmaker. Back in the late 80s, I was a pretty big silver trader and gold trader. And I don't think I've ever told this story on tape before. I was a pretty big silver and gold trader. And I always paid my taxes, and I took what was a legal tax deduction on my silver trades. And a few years later, I think it was 88 or 89 or something, the IRS claimed that what I did, and other people did as well, was now illegal. We couldn't do it anymore. But they made it retroactive. I said, what do you mean retroactive? It was legal then. I did what was legal. I said, yeah, but it's now we're making it illegal retroactively. And that's not good. So you owe us $600,000 or $800,000. For what? It was legal. How could you make something retroactive? change the law backwards in time. It makes no sense. Well, we're doing it. And so everybody said they can't do that, so we went to court, a class action lawsuit. And the judge agreed with the IRS and said they could do it retroactively. And that's when I knew that there was something wrong in America with the IRS and the system here, you know.
Aaron, you were telling me this story last night, and before you even finished saying, in the late 80s, the tax law said retroactive. And I knew that because they literally ruined my dad, but he paid. He didn't know. He still thought this was America. And it was legal tax law, what you're supposed to do. And they said retroactively you owe, and with, not just retroactive, but they said you also penalties and interest.
That's right.
So how do you have penalties and interest on something when they retroactively change the law?
Well, first of all, they can't retroactively. How can you do anything retroactively? Penalties and interest are a farce. The whole thing, because they do whatever they want to do. And that's when I realized America is not America. It's not the land that I was taught it was. Because they can do whatever they wish to do. And there's nothing the citizen can do about it.
Now, you've made America Freedom to Fascism. I want to walk through that film, and I want to encourage everybody out there to get a copy of it on DVD. It was also in theaters around the country, and I think the best film out there on the Federal Reserve and the IRS and the whole banker scam, and I want to discuss that with you here. But I wanted to go back a little bit to the point that we discussed last night, where you don't advise people to not pay. And I do the same thing. People say, well, wait, you're saying it's a scam, but you're saying go ahead and pay it. And I like the way you summed it up.
Well, it's really fairly simple. I mean, since making that movie, you know, many people come to me and ask me whether they should pay their income taxes or not, you know, and I never advise people not to pay. And the reason I tell them, I say, look, I've done a lot of research. The Supreme Court has ruled that the IRS has no authority. The 16th Amendment did not give the IRS the authority to tax your labor and your wages. That's a fact. All right, the Supreme Court is the law of the land, you know, and the IRS does not trump the Supreme Court. However, that being the case, the fact is, if the mafia would come to you and say, we want $2,000 a month or we're going to hurt you, I would not advise you not to pay them, because you may get hurt by not paying them. Whether it's legal or not doesn't necessarily matter. You're going to get hurt if you don't. It's the same thing with the IRS. They can hurt you. They can put you in jail. They can torture you. So if you don't pay them, you may get hurt. So I never advise people not to pay. You know, I tell people, yeah, pay your taxes.
Look what happened to Congressman Hansen.
Yeah, Congressman Hansen's a great example. Pay your taxes. But you know what? Shut down the Federal Reserve System, and eventually you won't have to pay those taxes anymore. See, the IRS is a symptom of the problem. The real problem is the banking industry and the bankers in this country. That's where the real problem lies. That's the root of our problem. That's why we've lost America, okay? So yeah, pay your taxes, because if you don't pay them, you might get hurt. And I've heard all the arguments, you know, what tax protesters say and so on and so forth. And I don't call them tax protesters. I call them the tax honesty movement, because they're being honest, you know, at least. But the fact of the matter is, you're being forced, you're being compelled to pay it, because you're facing jail sentences, you're facing time, you're facing corruption of the courts if you don't pay, right? And so you pay it, because you just like you'd pay the mafia. But with the mafia, at least you have the government to call and try and help you to get past the mafia, to protect you. Here you have nobody to protect you. The American people are living in a matrix. They don't understand the truth of how things are working in this country, you know? And let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. The very fact is that if you ask 100 people on the street, what kind of government is America supposed to be? 99% of them will tell you a democracy. America is supposed to be a democracy. But that's a lie. That's an illusion. The word democracy is not written into the Constitution at one time. It's not in the Bill of Rights. It's not in the Declaration of Independence. The Founding Fathers hated the idea of a democracy. They thought it was the worst form of government there is. And I agree with them. Because in a democracy, 51% of the people control 49% of the people. If you're part of the 49%, you're not free. America was founded as a constitutional republic. And in that constitutional republic that we have, 99% of the people can't take away the rights of 1%. You have your rights because you were born with them. You have God-given human rights that nobody can take away from you. The government, the majority, no matter who they are, I can't take away your rights. And that's what our founding fathers gave us. But the psychological operations that they do to us, they make us believe that we're a democracy and that majority rules, you see? And they want you to believe that. Because then they tell you this poll says this many want this and this many want that and this many want this, and it doesn't have anything to do with anything.
Well, Hitler was elected.
Hitler was elected. Hitler did everything legally.
And in a constitutional republic, a minority is protected against a majority. Wasn't it Benjamin Franklin, to paraphrase, that said democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner?
Exactly. And then he also said, in a republic, the sheep would have a gun to protect himself, you know. And that's the truth. America's not a democracy, but you ask the most intelligent people what form of government America is supposed to be, they'll say a democracy. Because that's what they've been brainwashed. They've been psyoped into believing that. They believe that we're in Iraq. They believe we're in Iraq to promote democracy. The word democracy, you hear George Bush saying democracy means freedom. No, democracy equals New World Order. Democracy equals slavery. The word democracy is not synonymous with freedom. It's the opposite of freedom. Democracy is the worst form of government you can have because it's majority rule. And the government can tell you exactly what they want to tell you to do because the majority wants it. I don't care what the majority wants. I live my life as I choose. And if I don't commit violence, theft, or fraud against another human being, I can live my life as I wish. That's my choice. And if I'm allowed to make mistakes, because when you make mistakes, you learn from them. You grow as a human being. We're put on this earth to become the best individuals we can be, to fulfill our God-given potential, right? We're not here to put on this earth so that the government can tell us how to live our lives and what we must do. We put into these systems and these paradigms. No. The same thing in health. You know, if you're sick, you have to have a certain protocol. Nonsense. You know, be individuals. Think for yourself. Have critical thinking. You know, and so what's happened is that because they've taught everybody that we're a democracy, which is not true, now, so then in 1913, they bring the Federal Reserve System into being, right? And now you have this Federal Reserve System, which then in 1913 got the right to create money for the government, when before that the government created its own money. Now the government, when it needed money, had to borrow it from this private bank called the Federal Reserve, which is a private bank owned by individuals, incorporated in Delaware. And so what happens is now the government borrows money from them to fund the government. Then the government says, well, we have to pay these people interest. How are we going to pay them interest? Let's impose a tax on the labor of the American people, which never existed before, to pay the interest to the bankers.
In fact, in 1980, Ronald Reagan said not one red cent of your income tax money goes to run the country. It all goes to the Federal Reserve. Well,
it was the Grace Commission report that said that not one nickel goes to the infrastructure of the country. You know.
I guess Reagan quoted that too.
Right. And so, but the point I'm trying to make is that by creating this Federal Reserve System, the government now became dependent on these private banks for money. And they started taxing us, you see. And so now what happens is that in 35, I believe it was, Social Security started. And they gave Social Security cards, said not to be used for identification, the Social Security number right on the card, right? And through Social Security, they started deducting money out of your paycheck. That was the first time they were ever could take money out of your paycheck, because people agreed to it because they thought it was going to their retirement fund. And so then when they instituted the income tax again, they started taking money out of your paycheck because Social Security could do it. And then they could do it again. You see what I'm saying?
And so now they've even taken control of the tax payment itself. I mean, literally like you're a slave, they're
Right.
taking it right there when you make it.
Exactly.
They don't even trust the public enough to go
To send
and
them
pay
a
it
check.
themselves, you know?
Right. So they take it out automatically because they know people aren't going to want to pay it. So what's happened is that through the implementation of the Federal Reserve System, the government has become vested in these bankers, and they get their money from the bankers. And so then they impose a tax on us, which makes us more slaves, makes it more difficult for us to survive, right? Giving them more profits. And now what's happened is that through the the Federal Reserve System, the bankers, have pretty much taken control of our government. It doesn't matter Republican and Democrat anymore, because they're both the same. Neither one of them are talking about shutting down the Federal Reserve System or stopping the payment of taxes, or any of the big issues that face Americans, right? So I had a friend, Nick Rockefeller, okay, who's one of the Rockefeller family, and he, when I was running for governor in Nevada, he came to me, introduced himself to me through an attorney, and we became friends. We started talking about things, and I learned an awful lot from Mr. Rockefeller. And one of the things that we used to talk about was the ultimate plan of the banking industry, what they wanted to accomplish. And the goals of the banking industry, not just the Federal Reserve System, but the private banks in Germany and England, all over Italy, all over the world, they all work together. They're all central banks, and they're all part of the Communist Manifesto. Central banking is one of the major planks of the Communist Manifesto. We talk about America being a capitalistic country, but yet at the same time we have a central bank that plans everything for us, right? And the graduated income tax is another plank of the Communist Manifesto, right? So right there you have two major planks of the Communist Manifesto that have been brought in because of the Federal Reserve System, okay? So the ultimate goal that these people have in mind is the goal to create a one world government run by the banking industry, run by the bankers, and they're doing it in sections. The European currency, the euro, and the European Constitution is one part of it. Now they're trying to do it in America with the North American Union, right? And they want to create a new currency called the Amero, right? And the whole agenda is to create a one world government where everybody has an RFID chip implanted in them. All money is to be in those chips, right? There'll be no more cash. And this is given me straight from Rockefeller himself. This is what they want to accomplish. And all money will be in your chips. And so instead of having cash, anytime you have money in your chip, they can take out whatever they want to take out whenever they want to. If they say you owe us this much money in taxes, they just deduct it out of your chip digitally.
Total control.
Total control. And if you're like me or you, and you're protesting what they're doing, they can just turn off your chip. And you have nothing. You can't buy food. You can't do anything. It's total control of the people.
And that chip's connected to a database that has your purchasing records, what you do, what
everything,
you sell.
Everything is in there, And so they want a one world government controlled by them, everybody being chipped, all your money in those chips, and they control the chips, and they control people. And you become a slave. You become a serf to these people. That's their goal. That's their intentions.
Eric, can you be specific about when you met Rockefeller, how it happened in these discussions?
I met Rockefeller through a female attorney I knew who called me up one day and said, one of the Rockefellers would like to meet you. I had made a video called Mad as Hell, and he'd seen the video and wanted to meet me and knew I was running for governor of Nevada. So sure, I'd love to meet him. And I met him and I liked him, and he was a very, very smart man. And we used to talk and share ideas and thoughts. And he's the one who told me 11 months before 9/11 ever happened that there was going to be an event. Never told me what the event was going to be, but there was going to be an event. And out of that event, we were going to invade Afghanistan to run pipelines from the Caspian Sea. We were going to invade Iraq, to take over the oil fields, establish a base in the Middle East, and make it all part of the New World Order. And we'd go after Chavez in Venezuela. And sure enough, later, 9/11 happened. And I remember he was telling me how you're going to see soldiers looking in caves for people in Afghanistan and Pakistan and all these places. And there's going to be this war on terror, which there's no real enemy. And the whole thing is a giant hoax, but it's a way for the government to take over the American people.
He told you it was going to be a hoax.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's no question. He says, there's going to be war on terror. And he's just laughing. There's no... Who are we fighting? I mean, why do you think 9/11 happened? And then nothing's happened since then. Do you think that our security is so great here that these people who pulled off 9/11, who were able to, can't knock down another plane? Come on, it's ridiculous. 9/11 was done by people in our own government and our own banking system to perpetuate the fear of the American people into subordinating themselves to anything the government wants them to do. That's what it's about, and to create this war, this endless war on terror. And that's why and that was the first lie. And the next lie was going into Iraq, you know, to get Saddam Hussein out with his weapons of mass destruction. That was the next lie.
Now, specifically, this was a little over 6 years ago.
This was
11 months before 9/11.
Yeah.
And Nick Rockefeller, who's a lawyer, he's become your friend over the previous years, and he's saying to you that there's going to be this big event, and then out of that we're going to have a war on terror, and it's just going to go on and on.
Right, an endless war on terror without any real enemy. That you can never, so you can never define a winner.
And did he say that it's going to be perfect because you can't define an enemy? It just goes on and on?
Yeah, because you can't define a winner. There's no one to beat, so it goes on and on forever. And they can do whatever they want. They scare the hell out of the American public. Look, this whole war on terror is a fraud. It's a farce. It's very difficult to say it out loud because people are intimidated against saying it. Because if you say it, they want to make you into a nutcase. But the truth has to come out. That's why I'm doing this interview. The fact of the matter happens to be that the whole war on terror is a fraud. It's a farce. Yeah, there's a war going on in Iraq because we invaded Iraq. And people over there fighting, you know. But the war on terror, it's a joke, you know. And until we discover what really happened on 9/11 and who was responsible for 9/11, because that's where the war on terror emanates from. That's where it comes from. It was 9/11 that allowed this war on terror to begin. And until we get to the bottom root of 9/11, the truth of 9/11, we'll never know about the war on terror.
Aaron, you said that he was, and I think it's important, and I know this about the Rockefellers from Dr. Dennis Cuddy and many others who literally, you'll be 20 years old in a lunch line at college, and no, there's David Rockefeller. And here's here. I mean, they're experts at recruiting and getting what they call players, and that clearly he was. I mean, I want to make it specific and just get you to reiterate what you said last night about you got 30% of the vote. You were having an effect. You made mad as hell. They knew that you'd started the Constitution Party. Yeah. They knew that you were somebody who was taking action and getting things done. You'd already made some big films, had a lot of other successes.
Right.
So they were trying to recruit you, and didn't it come down to the point of, hey, we are here to recruit you, and don't worry, your chip's going to say, don't mess with us. You know, this guy's don't touch.
Yeah, yes, that did happen. I was definitely being recruited, but it's more subtle than that.
Well, in your words, just go through the process, and then what he said.
Well, what it is remember, we were friends, and we used to go to my house a lot. We'd have dinner, we'd talk, and he'd tell me about business investments, how you get involved in, you know, or they would help me with this business investment or that business investment. And was I interested in joining the Council on Foreign Relations? You know, I would have to get a letter to join them, but was I interested in that? And, you know, just stuff, you know, leading you on. And I used to say to him that I never really did that because that wasn't where I was coming from. You know, as much as I like you, Nick, you know, your ways and my ways, we're on the opposite side of the fence. You know, I don't believe in enslaving people, you know, and
he would come back with, oh, I do? Or?
Well, it would be more like, you know.
It's better for them.
Well, it's more like, you know, how do I put it? It was like, what do you care about them? What do you care about those people? What difference does it make to you? Take care of your own life. Do the best you can for you and your family. What do the rest of the people mean to you? They don't mean anything to you. They're just serfs. They're just people. You know, it was just a lack of caring, you know, and that's just not who I was. It was just sort of like cold, you know. It was just like cold, you know. And I used to say to him, what's the point of all this? You have all the money in the world you need. You have all the power you need. What's the point? You know, what's the end goal? And he said the end goal is to get everybody chipped, to control the whole society, to have the bankers, the elite people, you know, the bankers and some governor controlling the world. And I said, do all the people in the Council on Foreign Relations believe this way you do? He said, no. You know, most of them believe they're doing the right thing. A lot of them believe it's better off being socialistic. You know, we have to convince people that that socialism is really capitalism. Because America's becoming a socialist country. It's a communist country today. Well, one of the things they told me was that he was at the house one night, and we were talking, and he started laughing. He said, Aaron, what do you think women's liberation was about? And I said, I had pretty conventional thinking about it at that point. I said, I think it's about women having the right to work, getting equal pay with men, just like they won the right to vote, you know? And he started to laugh. He said, you're an idiot. And I said, why am I an idiot? He said, let me tell you what that was about. We, the Rockefellers, funded that. We funded Women's Lib, you know? And we're the ones who got all over the newspapers and television, the Rockefeller Foundation. He says, and you want to know why? He says, there were two primary reasons. And they were, one reason was we couldn't tax half the population before Women's Lib. And the second reason was, now we get the kids in school at an early age. We can indoctrinate the kids how to think. It breaks up the family. The kids start looking at the state as the family, as the school, as the officials, as their family, not as the parents teaching them. And so those are the two primary reasons for Women's Lib, which I thought up to that point was a noble thing. You know, when I saw their intentions behind it, where they were coming from when they created it, the thought of it, I saw the evil behind what I thought was a noble venture.
Aaron, did you know that Gloria Steinem, in one of her own books, now admits the CIA funded Miss Magazine?
No, I had no idea about that. No, I never heard that.
Yeah, we're going to...
CIA funded Miss Magazine?
Funded Miss Magazine with the stated goal of taxing women and breaking up the family.
No kidding. I never heard that. Well, Nick told me. I mean, I know it, but not because I know the CIA was involved in it.
Well, Gloria Steinem was proud of it. Oh, the CIA wanted to help women.
No kidding.
So they funded it, yeah. And of course, it's divide and conquer.
Right,
and what they do is they focus in, obviously, on real problems. Women were getting shafted in many ways, but the elite wasn't planning to help them. They were planning to really shaft them and take men away from them. Look at what they did with black families. You only had about 10% illegitimacy 50 years ago in black communities, and now it's over 90%. And look at welfare. You were going to give you some money, but you can't have a man in the house.
Right.
And so that was further to degrade the family, totally destroyed. And now illegitimacy is over 50% in the general population.
Right. Well, see, the whole thing is these people control the money, so they make all the rules. You understand? And they put whatever rules they want into effect. And the truth is, America has really become a socialist, communistic country. And everybody says it's a capitalistic country. It's not a capitalistic country. You know, how can it be capitalistic when you have a central bank? That's the first. It can't be. You know,
it's a planned economy.
It's a planned economy. It's a phony. If they want to create prosperity, they just print dollars. They just make dollars or put digits into the economy, and then now you have prosperity. You don't have real prosperity. You don't have real manufacturing. You just have money being injected in. It's an infusion of credit,
which only makes the government go into more debt.
Into more debt. My friendship with Nick Rockefeller was one where we expressed ideas to each other and thoughts and philosophies, and he wanted me to become part of what they were doing, and for me to become a member of the CFR, and offered various business opportunities for me to get involved in, and for me to not take up the fight or the battle that I've been taking up in the past, you know, to drop that idea, because what was the point of my fighting for the people? I was a guy who was very successful in the movie business, and I saw the truth of what was happening. I tried to express it to the people, and rather than having me express it to the people, they wanted me to join their side because I was a mover and a shaker, and rather than me opposing them, to join them. It was real simple, and he tried to recruit me into that situation, and I didn't go for it.
Did he get angry when you didn't go for it?
No. And, you know, it's like, you know, I remember one time he said to me, you join us, so you have an ID card, Aaron, you know, you have a chip, and your chip will say KMA on it. And I said, what does KMA mean? He said, it means kiss my ass. And anybody stops you, a cop or whatever, and you show them your card or your chip, and they'll know to leave you alone, because you're one of us, you know? And, you know, why are you fighting for the people for? What is that about? The people just, they have to be ruled. They have to be, the Constitution, what you're standing for, is only for a few people. It's only a few individuals that can live that way, And we believe that it's best for society to be ruled by an elite people who control everything. And I said, I don't believe that. I believe God put me on this earth to be the best person I could be, and put everybody on this earth to be the best they can be, not to be a slave and a sheep to you and these people. And I don't understand why you want to control everything. What is the need for that? And I asked them, do all the people in the Council of Foreign Relations feel the same way you feel? He said, no, a lot of them think they're doing the right thing. They think that socialism is the best way to go. They think that, that they're doing the right thing. But the people at the top, they all know the truth of what's happening. And that's what it is.
So it's compartmentalized within the elite structure as well.
Of course it is. Of course it is. I mean, all the people that are in the CFR, was that 2,000-3,000 people? I forget like Dan Rather. They don't know what's going on. They join the CFR because it's prestigious. They think it's good for business. It's good for this. They don't know what's really happening. The evil that comes out of it, that's emanating out of it. And to me, the biggest evil is what's happening right now, because what happened on 9/11 is a phony, and we've never learned the truth about 9/11.
That's the question I wanted to follow up on. He tells you 11 months before there's going to be an event, all this is going to happen. What did you think on the morning of 9/11? Where were you, and did you think about Nick Rockefeller and what he had told you when you saw those towers fall?
No, I was actually in Tahiti when 9/11 happened, and I got a call from my son. And my son said, the Twin Towers, they were just attacked, and they were falling down or something. So what are you talking? I was in Tahiti, I was asleep. And he says, yeah, they were hit by a plane, da da da. And so where I lived, where I was in Tahiti, there was no television, so I had to run around the other side of the island to a hotel where they had, and it was all on television, and that's when I first saw the stuff on TV about it. And I didn't immediately equate it to Nick, but when I realized that we're going to go into Afghanistan, Iraq, and as that developed, I realized what it was. I mean, to me, I see people like Bill O'Reilly on television, right? And I see how much they control the media. Like there's this girl on Bill O'Reilly the other night from an organization saying the world can't wait. And this girl was spot on. Everything she was saying was the truth. And all Bill O'Reilly could do was call her a lunatic. He couldn't challenge the facts. They just call people names. They can't, and until we just find that, look, this world, we're heading into a world of danger, possible nuclear wars, because the banking industry is trying to take over the world. 9/11 is the beginning of the war on terror. That war on terror is leading us into Iraq, which is the next lie. So you had the lie of 9/11, how that happened. Nobody knows how Building 7 came down. Okay, we know 9/11 was a fraud. The American people don't know it, but more and more of them are believing it. Okay, so that was the first lie. Besides the inception, I'm not going back to the inception of the Federal Reserve, that original lie. But 9/11 was the first lie in this present state we're in. 9/11 is the kickoff of the war against the American people and the people of the world. 9/11 was a phony. It's a fraud. It didn't happen the way they told us it happened. Now, because of 9/11, we then had the authority to go into Afghanistan and Iraq. Iraq didn't have weapons of mass destruction. Okay? So that was the next lie. Now they're talking about going into Iran. Now, how would you feel if you were Iran and you had this big, powerful country, America, go into your next door neighbor, take over their oil fields, right? Wouldn't you be worried that what they were going to do to you? Of course you're going to be worried. But the people of America don't think about it from Iran's point of view. They think about it from our point of view. So now we're going to send more troops into Iraq and keep building up because they want Iraq and the Middle East to become part of the New World Order. And Iraq was using, Saddam wanted to start using euros instead of dollars, right?
He was messing up their whole consolidation.
Iran wants to start using euros instead of dollars.
They have.
Okay? So I'm saying what they're trying to do is preserve their power. And one lie leads to the next lie, leads to the next lie. And until you get to the root cause of 9/11, which is supposedly the war on terror, we'll never solve our problems here. Should we send more troops into Iraq? Should we not send more troops into Iraq? Well, the truth is, the fact is, that it all goes back to this war on terror. Where did 9/11 come from? That's the root cause of everything. And until we have a full investigation, find out why Building 7 fell down, why they shipped all the steel out of America so quickly, from the buildings, why all the things that don't make any sense about 9/11, until we find out why it really happened, we'll never understand why there's a war on terror. And we'll never be able to prove that the war on terror is a phony. Nick and I discussed many things. One of the things we discussed, or he brought up in conversation, was reducing world population, and felt that there were too many people in the world. In a way, I agree, there are too many people in the world, but I don't think I have the authority to say who's going to die and who's not going to die, But they felt that they wanted to reduce world population, and he felt that it should be reduced by half. He even mentioned to me once they were having a real problem trying to solve the Israel-Palestinian problem. And he talked to me once about they were playing with the idea of bringing Israel to Arizona, and taking all the people from Israel and giving everybody $1 million and setting up Israel in the state of Arizona.
Unbelievable.
Just to end that problem, because that's a problem that they're not in charge of, in a sense. They're not controlling that problem. They're very arrogant. They can do whatever they want to do. We've given these people the authority to create money out of thin air, and through that device, they control everything. And if you want to win the battle to stop that, you have to deny them the ability to create money. It's only because they can make money that they have all this power.
They literally have the money machines.
They have the money machines. They can print it. They can do whatever they want to do. They own everything.
Aaron, we take over pretty quick. If we were the guys that issued the money, everybody had to come give us real assets for the use of this money we just printed up.
People. I tell people, why in the world does the American government borrow money from the banks when they have the ability to create it themselves without borrowing it and paying interest on it? Why? And nobody can answer that question. Not one politician ever raises that. Why does the American government borrow money when they can create it without paying interest?
Well, we did create it up until 1913.
And so people say, well, because if the American government does it, it'll create inflation. That's the answer. I say, well, let's look at it. The American government has the Federal Reserve do it, which creates the same inflation as if they did it. But also with the inflation, now you're getting massive debt. So with the Federal Reserve, you have inflation and debt. Now, if the American government made the money, backed by gold, which limited the amount they could make, you wouldn't have debt and you wouldn't have inflation.
But inflation was only about 50% from the 1780s, I've looked it up, until the late 1800s. And then we have the central banks already trying to cause some panics, which they then used to push the Federal Reserve. And if we look at inflation since 1913 into 2007, it's exponential. In fact, $1 is worth about 2 pennies to what it was worth in 1913. Federal Reserve Chairman, former Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan doubled the money supply from 2000 to 2006. And then Edward Bernanke, the new Fed chief, came in and said he's going to double it again in the next 2 years. And then he said, now I'm going to make the money supply numbers secret. And so now we don't even know. Right. But the evidence is they are just, in the curve of inflation, it gradually grows. And then suddenly at a point, it goes straight up. And it seems
it's
now
parabolic,
reached,
yeah.
Parabolic.
But the thing is that the only thing I disagree with you on from early 1800 to 1913, there was no inflation other than during the Civil War. When Lincoln was
well, I'm talking about how much $1 was worth, and I know
it never changed. There was no inflation in that whole 100 years. There was no inflation. People knew what the money was worth. They could retire. They knew what it would cost them to live their lives out. There was no problem. It was only since 1913, when the Fed came in, that we created massive inflation and massive debt.
So then what you said earlier, then there really wasn't inflation.
There was no inflation.
So you don't get inflation when the government issues the money, at least in the U.S. history.
Well, not if it's backed by gold.
Well, exactly, but I'm talking about, and I did look this up, and I believe that if you look after the country was set up, and some of the things that happened with Andrew Jackson and the rest of it, there were points where it spiked and there were manipulations.
There were points, mostly during the Civil War.
Yeah, and that's because Lincoln printed so much money. To pay
Exactly. That's right. But once that ended, but basically there was no inflation other than that during that short period of time. I mean, a loaf of bread was a loaf. Of course, the same thing. People could plan their lives. Today, they planned inflation. Now you have two parents working. They can't afford to pay for their family anymore. The kids are going to state-run schools now. The kids are being indoctrinated how to think. They're being given Ritalin. They're being given all these drugs. The whole country's being dumbed down. It's all because of the Federal Reserve System. And the Federal Reserve System and these bankers are responsible for the demise of America. And if we ever want to win this battle, you must shut down the Federal Reserve System. And we must shut down these bankers and restore sound money to this country.
Will you talk a little bit about some of the families that own the private Federal Reserve, the stock in it? And I mean, obviously, you say you're not a big expert on Bilderberg Group, but you talk about how it's the same system worldwide. It is the same families. They meet and kind of set the policy each year, and then it goes to the Royal Institute of International Affairs in England, it goes to the CFR in the U.S., and then these are their management bodies where they wield control, really the de facto Congresses over the nation. So, I mean, I would like you to speak some about the families that own and run the Federal Reserve, and if you can't connect it into these other international bodies duplicating it.
I can't speak to those families because I can only speak about what I know for fact. Everything else is speculation, and I don't like to speculate. I know about Rockefeller because I was friends with him. We talked about it, and I can tell you firsthand.
What did Rockefeller tell you about the Federal Reserve and their family owning part of it?
Well, he said the New York Fed is the main controlling interest of the Federal Reserve System. They control the bulk of it. So the New York Fed is really the Federal Reserve System. Even though there's 12 different banks, it's run by the New York Fed. And the New York Fed is basically the Federal Reserve System. So who's ever running the New York Fed is where, and the families that control it, control the New York Fed. And they're the main engine behind the Federal Reserve System.
And that's a wing of the Bank of England.
Well, the Bank of England and the Federal Reserve are partners, and the Bank of England is a private bank, and so is the Bundesbank in Germany, and the bank of all the banks of the G8 countries are all private banks. They're private central banks. And look, what happened in Europe? Didn't Europe vote down the European Constitution?
Yes.
They're still doing it. Didn't they vote down the Euro? They're still doing it. They don't care what the people vote. They do whatever they want to do. What we want doesn't matter anymore. It's their agenda, it's their plans that matter.
Isn't that prima facie evidence of a tyranny?
Well, there's no question we're in tyranny. There's no question we're living in a world where the American citizen is no longer a free individual human being to do the things that they wish to do. We're slaves, and it's getting worse.
What do we got to do to bring these people down?
In my opinion, you must shut down the Federal Reserve System. And I think that there has to be an uprising. There has to be an uprising. People have to stand up. I can't do it alone. You can't do it alone, Alex. And we need to get a majority of people, not a majority of people, but
it was 5% won the war against the British, a highly motivated group. But I agree, people have got to get angry first. I mean, not just, we know it's corrupt and that lackadaisical. We got to get pissed.
People don't seem to have the courage to do what they have to do,
I want to say you've got a lot of courage.
Well, thank you. I don't know if I have a lot of courage. I just have
I want to thank you for what you're doing for my family.
Well, I have a sense of conscience and I have a sense of justice. I get nervous about what I do, but I do it because there's no other choice. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't do it, But the fact of the matter is, I've ostracized myself pretty much from Hollywood. People are afraid to deal with me in Hollywood a lot because of what I do and the things I say. I don't go along with routines. A lot of people in Hollywood know the truth. They're not willing to stand up and speak about it. And I know many of them have seen my movie, and they know I'm right, and they won't talk about it because everybody's afraid. Everybody's afraid because they think that this money they get, these Federal Reserve notes, are really money, and they think they have a comfortable lifestyle, and they're afraid of change. You know, they're afraid to stand up for what's right. And until people are willing to stand up and have the courage to do what they need to do, it's not going to change. And hopefully, you know, what you're doing, what I'm doing, what other people like us are doing, can affect the change that people will stand up and say, hey, I've had enough. The thing is, we have one advantage, that they need us to cooperate. See, if we don't cooperate with them, they can't win. And so they always need our cooperation to go along with their programs.
So they try to sell us.
Right. They try to sell us. Democracy, this majority says this, believe in this, do that. The war on terror, you know, we got to be scared. You know, they're always trying to do things to sell us that will go along with them. And once we learn not to cooperate with them, then we win the game. And that's the point. Don't cooperate with them. Don't go along with the program anymore. Stop it. Join forces. You and I should run for president and vice president and take over this country and bring freedom back to this country. You know, that's what it's going to take. Two people like you and I, statesmen, who believe in freedom, who believe in Thomas Jefferson and the Constitution and the founding fathers, to make this country whole again. Because right now it's in the grip of the evil ones, you know. And the only way to stop that is for good men to stand up. Was Edmund Burke said, evil can only thrive when good men do nothing?
Yes.
Right? We got to do something. That's what it is, you know. Silence is golden, but when it comes to your freedom, it's yellow. You know, we have to stop being scared. We have to stand up and do what's necessary to take back, to stop these bankers, these elite, this government full of lies, congressmen full of liars, you know. People destroying our borders, you know, creating a government. I mean, imagine this. Here you are in America, and they're combining America, Canada, and Mexico into one country, the North American Union, and the American people don't know anything about it. It's not even in the press. They'd rather talk about Rosie O'Donnell and Donald Trump calling each other names than discussing the fact that we're merging into one country. The press doesn't even report it.
Or that Paris Hilton doesn't wear underwear.
Yeah, Britney Spears. But I mean, who cares? I mean, the fact of the matter happens to be that tells you how controlled the media is. Here you are combining America, Canada, and Mexico into one country, and you don't see it in the press.
Unless maybe it's Lou Dobbs.
You don't see it in the press. You just don't see it.
It should be the top story everywhere.
Everywhere, and not a word about it, really. Why? That tells you there's the evidence that it's controlled. They don't want the American people to know what's going on. That's why they don't protect our borders. That's why we're losing our Constitution, the very document that secures our freedoms. Well, I think if you analyze the situation, and if you realize that since the Federal Reserve has come into being in 1913, illegally, without a constitutional amendment, by bribing a few senators during Christmas vacation, they turned over the most important power that the American government has, the creation and issuance of money, to a private bank. Through that private bank issuing money, they have destroyed this country. They have destroyed the purchasing power of the money in this country. They've created social programs that are destroying this country. Now, they've taken over our government, both Republicans and Democrats. There's no difference anymore between the two parties. They control both parties. It doesn't matter to them which one wins, because who's ever running for president will be someone they anoint, okay? Whether it's Hillary Clinton or John McCain running for president next year, they're going to be people that are going to do what they want them to do. And the fact of the matter happens to be that you can't win an election unless you have enough money to win. They make sure who gets the money, okay? So through these bankers attempting to taking over America, knowing that America was the freest nation in the world, it was necessary for them to take over America, take away our gun rights of freedom to bear arms, and create a country where we become slaves. Because once they take over America, the rest of the world becomes a lot easier for them. And so, by creating 9/11, an event to terrify the American people that were being attacked by terrorists, you create a world where there's an enemy that can never be pinpointed. You can never win the battle. It's a 100-year war. It's a never-ending war on terrorism, right? So you're always fighting this war. And through the war on terrorism, which is the 9/11, which is the first lie, Then you create the war on terrorism, which is the next lie. Then you create the war on Iraq for weapons of mass destruction, which is the next lie. And it's one lie to the next lie to the next lie. Now it's going to be Iran, the next lie, sending more troops and a surge into Iraq. It's just one thing leading to the other, and it's always with the event. It's always in the point of taking over more countries, more dominance. You know, making sure the American dollar, making sure the G8 stays in control of everything, and what they want to do is to control the American people, control the people of the world, put RFID chips in everybody, so everybody's a slave to these central banks.
Did you ever talk to Nick Rockefeller after he told you all this and then 9/11 took place?
No. But he did. He told me that you're going to see men running around caves looking for Osama bin Laden. You know, you're going to see men looking for, these guys, and they're going to be,
They told you it was all going to be bull.
It's a phony. The whole thing is a fake. It's a fraud.
Was he laughing, or was he just coldly saying this?
No, it's more laughing. Cynical. Laughing. It's more like, look how stupid everybody is. Look how stupid everybody. We can do whatever we want to do.
Well, it is ridiculous. It's like with al-Zakari. They claim they killed him like 14 times. And then they never said, well, we didn't kill him last time, but we killed him this time. They never even... Now they're like practicing being ridiculous.
Well, what about bin Laden being in the American hospital, getting kidney help?
Yeah.
Right? In the American hospital. Yeah. Right? They could, if they wanted Osama bin Laden, they could have gotten him.
Oh, yeah.
He was right in the American, after the coal.
Well, every time our troops really would catch some Taliban leaders, they would be ordered by the generals to let them go. That's come out in the newspapers, but only here or there. And they kept going, and then Pat Tillman was complaining about it, and then he got shot. I've talked to his brother.
Oh, you did?
And then he got shot, and it was a big hero charging Al-Qaeda. No Al-Qaeda, somebody shot him in the back.
Look, we're dealing with complete evil. We're dealing with complete evil. And until the American people wake up and say, we don't want this evil in our country anymore, and we want to come back to a country of decency and goodness and integrity and honor, we're going down that road. And that's what it's going to take. It's going to take people to stand up and say, we don't want to live in this kind of a world anymore. I believe we should pull all our troops out of Iraq. I believe we should leave other countries alone. Let other countries live their lives the way they choose to. Stop trying to spread democracy around the world, which is the worst form of government there is anyway. Restore our republic to what it's supposed to be, and go back to what the founding fathers gave us, and try and restore that. Restore the republic. Like the point of everything is that we have to mobilize. Each one of us. You and I can't do everything, Alex. You and I may be leaders. We may be out there, and people listen to us, what we have to say, and follow us. But the truth of the matter happens to be, it takes all Americans to stand together, to stand tall, to mobilize and say, we're not going to take this anymore. I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take it anymore. We're going to stand up and fight the battle. And you and I can't do this alone. We're just leaders of the thing. But other people have to join in with us and stand side by side, shoulder to shoulder, and say, I'm not going to take it anymore. That's what it's going to take to win this effort, and to stop cooperating with the government and with all their rules and regulations, and to wake everybody up, to hand out DVDs of my movie, to hand out DVDs of your movie, to educate everybody to what's going on. Well, freedom and liberty is what people really want. And it's time to stop the duplicity of the government from lying to us. You see, many people know the truth of what's happening in this country. They know the truth, like the numbers you gave about 9/11, but they're afraid to stand up. People have to find their courage and stand up and say, I'm not going to take this anymore. I know the truth, and it's like they create a situation where if you tell the truth, you're considered a lunatic. In other words, if someone goes on a TV show and says 9/11's an inside job, oh, you're an idiot, you're crazy. They call you names. You can't be afraid of that.
Well, it doesn't work anymore. I mean, they have no facts. Just calling you crazy doesn't make you crazy.
Well, we know that.
They also go get kooks who are kooks to put them on to then say they represent us.
That's right, exactly.
Another tactic.
Exactly. And Bill O'Reilly's great at that. Sean Hannity is great at that. They just put people on who they can dominate, But
why do you think guys like that, they're not stupid? I mean, I've talked to people that know them. They know the truth. Why do you think they decide to join the evil?
That has to be in their hearts. I mean, I had the opportunity to do that, and then in my heart I couldn't do it. So it has.
But I mean, how could you or I consciously be involved in something like putting AIDS virus in black Africans' vaccines? I mean, what the hell? I mean, it's like, we're not good guys either. I mean, I don't think I'm like some special perfect person. What the hell's wrong with this elite? I mean, what are they running around doing evil? I mean, they just run around continually doing evil.
Well, I think a lot of them think they're doing the right thing. I think a lot of them think they're doing the right thing. Not the top elite, but people within the system, you know. But I think that it's all about, as Nick said to me, it's about control and power. They have all the money they want. They can make all the money they want. They have a machine that can make all the money. It's not about money. It's about control. It's about their vision of how they want to see the world in their eyes. And, you know, you and I believe in individuality, in the person being the dominant thing, the individual being the dominant person. Today we live in a world where institutions are dominant, not people. You know, the American, you know, we the people, by the people, for the people. Now it's we the institutions, by the institutions, for the institutions. People are secondary. It's all about corporations and institutions. And the Federal Reserve is the biggest institution in the world. You know, if you ask somebody what's the biggest corporation in the world, they'll say Google or Walmart or Exxon or something. But the biggest corporation in the world is the Federal Reserve System, right? And all the other corporations feed off the nipple of the Federal Reserve System.
Well, it's like the Monopoly game. The bank always wins. It has unlimited money. It's not the people playing on the board.
Exactly.
The bank owns the board, the box, the shelf it's sitting on.
But that's because you gave them the ability to make the money. You have to take that away from them.
We need to take the bank away from the private bankers.
Exactly. You have to take the creation of money away from the private bankers, and you'll solve 95% of your problems.
Well, I mean, look at America. 10% growth rates every year like China's having right now. The U.S. had 10% growth rates until the Federal Reserve took over. And then if you look at that, it all starts really going downhill from there. Well,
they destroyed the American worker. What they've done, here's what's happened. The Federal Reserve has created this massive inflation in America, which means that the American worker has to keep making more money to keep up with the cost of living. The more money they make to keep with the cost of living, the less competitive they become in the world economy. So now what happens is we have to pay our workers so much to keep up with the cost of living. Say, well, screw the American worker. Let's go overseas now and get the cheap labor.
But really, that's a war being waged against the middle class.
Of course,
the bankers print the money. Really, this is a war being waged against the middle class. The bankers print the money. Everything they're doing is about destroying any private pools of wealth or independence.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is, because of the inflation that they've created, they've now allowed other countries to outcompete us. You see, because other countries don't have to pay as much money as we have to pay here to our workers to survive.
Yes.
So now we're not competitive anymore. So we've lost our manufacturing base. We've lost our competitive. In the old days, the American worker, you wanted to buy everything American. You wouldn't buy anything from Japan, which was cheap crap.
And what does that leave us? It leaves America this military force, and so the elite's giving us a deal. We'll continue to build up your military and give you homeland security jobs, shift your economy over to being the bulldog enforcer of the New World Order.
Exactly.
You can either do, and by controlling the economy, they force everybody into that position.
That's exactly correct. That's exactly correct. And there's no more manufacturing here. We're a service economy. We do nothing. We provide nothing. We provide nothing to the rest of the world anymore. Well, first of all, Freedom to Fascism is a movie that everybody should see, because we show the fraud of the income tax. We show how judges put people in jail for no reason. We show the corruption of the justice system, and we show how the Federal Reserve came into being and how it's controlling society, and how all the central banks of the world are working together through the Bank of International Settlements in Switzerland, which is the central bank for all the central banks, and how they all work together to create this one world government, the one world order, which is what they're trying to do. So Freedom to Fascism is a movie just to get you a good basic education about how the world is really working. And I really want everybody to see that movie. Critical. In terms of the CFR, in terms of compartmentalization, I mean, there are many good people I believe, that are part of these organizations don't even understand what the organization's really about. People like when I was in Germany doing cancer treatment, there was a gentleman there who was visiting a friend of his who had cancer, and he was a member of the CFR, and we were talking, and I showed him the movie. He said, "Oh my God, I'm going to resign. I had no idea this was what CFR was about." He had no idea. He was just a nice guy who thought he was in this prestigious organization.
Yeah, a lot of it's about getting good people, and so you can watch them. Keep your friends close, your enemies closer.
Well, no, it wasn't even that. It was, well, a lot of people join the CFR because they think it's a prestigious organization. It'll help them in business, make good business contacts. They didn't have an understanding that the CFR is really about world domination, about how they and the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderbergers, all work together, with the banks to control the people. A lot of them don't understand that. They don't see the big picture. Oh, it's CFR, it's a prestigious organization. I'll meet this one, I'll meet that one. I can do good business deals out of it. It's just business to them. The CFR wants to get the people in there that have influence and power, and so they're part of that. So they're not opposing them, It's like the whole country today is becoming the haves and have-nots. You're getting the very, very wealthy, the middle class is being destroyed, and you're getting the poor people.
Isn't this just a slick mafia that took over and uses fancy PR?
Well, you can call it mafia, you call it whatever you want, but it's definitely a criminal organization. There's no question about it. But it's a criminal organization that has prestige, that appears to have what's the word I'm looking for? Class, style. It's like, respected. It's respected. People don't look at it as being a criminal organization. That's what a great job they've done. People look at Alan Greenspan as being a hero. The maestro. Money's a funny thing. I was talking to Michael Eisner one day, and I said to Michael, you may have $1 billion, Michael, but they're all dollars. If the dollar goes bad, how much money are you going to have? And that's the thing. Everything is denominated in dollars. Everybody thinks in terms of dollars, but the dollar has no value. And someday it's everything returns to the mean.
Well, really, the whole universe, financial universe we live in, is a matrix fraud.
Yes, it is. And that's why it's going to come crashing at some point. And they're going to try and hold it up as long as they can. I mean, whenever they want to manipulate the markets, they can. If they want to send the price to go down lower, they can. If they want to send the stock market up, they can. They do that. There's no more free markets. You don't live in a society where free markets rule anymore. You don't live in a capitalistic society.
But meanwhile, they say it's capitalistic
right.
and free market all day, when really they're waging war financially and politically.
Exactly right.
Aaron Russo, I want to thank you for this interview. Anything else you want to add?
No, I'm happy to do it for you.
How about your website?
My website, freedomtofascism.com. Go over there, take a look at it. But just folks, all I can say is, take our country back, restore the Constitution. Don't let these bankers do this to us anymore. Stand up, don't be afraid of them, and do what you got to do, And I have plans in the works, and when I get over my problems, we'll reveal them, And
well, I'll be supportive of that.
Thank you, Alex. And listen, you've done a great job alerting people to the truth, and don't. In other words, don't be afraid to be ridiculed by these people. If 9/11 was a phony, and I know it was, then stand up and say it's a phony. Don't be scared to tell the truth. Don't allow their powers of trying to make you look silly to frighten you.
What did you think of what Charlie Sheen did?
I love what Charlie Sheen did. I was so respectful of what he did. I just applauded him.
People saw right through that attack. They flipped a light switch when they went after him.
Yeah, but they don't. You see, the thing is that more people don't come out and do it. To build that wave. Charlie did it. I'm really proud of the guy.
David Lynch did, but the media was smart and didn't bite this time.
Right. I mean, a few people have, but they're not picking up on it because they control the media.
James Brolin did on The View.
I heard that as well. But again, they're not picking up.
Barbara Walters looked like she's about to have a heart attack.
but they don't pick up on it. You see, they don't allow it to go anywhere. You know, it comes if someone says something, they let it die. You know, but they keep perpetuating, you know, the war on terrorism. They keep perpetuating all these things that are lies. And because we've given the Federal Reserve the money-making power, they control the media, they control the government, and they're all in bed together. So you're fighting all this propaganda all the time, and it's a very difficult fight.